Darrell, what do you specialize in? Some of the software engineer and product management. So, basically write code. Technology. But I mean, I'll get into it a lot more in just a second here to get a fuller picture. Basically, work with the Northeastern area, the Eastern area, all over the Texas, or where you basically. So I'm based in Austin right now. Austin, Texas, yeah. Just moved out there last year. I run operations for Eagle Eye for their technology partner program. So it's a video surveillance company, cloud video surveillance. So what's your topic for today, and what are you going to do? I just want something to the general idea as to why other people live.
The topic is leveraging emerging technologies to position yourself for success. So I wanted, because I know Brother DJ more because of his expertise with cryptocurrencies and digital currencies, but he wanted to expand that topic. So he's going to talk about the technologies overall, which is going to include the crypto and the digital. So as soon as I read his bio, we'll jump into this thing. I'm waiting for them to. Good, turn music on.
Not sure. Are we welcome to order our own food? Did y'all have plans for that?
I'm sorry?
Are we welcome to grab our own food or?
Oh yeah, by all means. But yeah, it's Thursday morning breakfast. So yeah, go eat. I'll go order your food. I'm gonna start in about 2 minutes.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah. Tamani. Yeah, M1 Donnie. But you can call me Tamani. Yes, ma'am.
So this visualize introduced me to this meeting as a investment club meeting, or what is this meeting about?
Oh.
What is this whole?
Well, that is
Thursday?
an incorrect description. So I'll say it when I do the intro. But we have Thursday morning breakfast to invite public and private sector subject matter experts to come speak about whatever they might do. So we're trying to give the community more information about things that they might need to better their lives, their businesses, their communities. We've had people come out who have nonprofits, of course. We've had Port Houston come out. We've had people from the city of Houston come out talking about their different programs. So we're trying to be the bridge between all of the good and the information that's currently happening with those that might need that in their lives. And it can be anywhere from what we talked about last week with using your economic and financial resources to move yourself and your family, your community forward. Or you can be talking about sexual assault. You can be talking about mental health. You can be talking about feeding the community. It can be anything. So Thursday morning breakfast is about us getting people who are doing some good to come out and talk about that good in hopes that the community will hear it so they can benefit from it. That's what this is about. So subject matter changes every week. And with this current special election coming up for the 18th congressional district, then I've had a few candidates reach out, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to have them do an individual Thursday morning breakfast or have a panel. So I'm trying to work on that part right now. So, it can be anything. Last March was a year. We've been here maybe 10 months. We had another, maybe 11 months. We had another location closer to downtown, but after we had 2 breakfast events there, they didn't serve breakfast. They started with brunch, but they were trying to accommodate what we were doing. So they created a breakfast menu, but we didn't have a lot of people. So they eventually said it's not working out for us. Thanks, but no thanks. So I had to find a new location, and it took me about maybe 2 or 3 weeks to finally find this spot and work it out. And Mr. Gavin has been, he and his wife have been absolutely awesome. So we've been here for maybe 10, 11 months, 10 months, 10 and a half months, something like that. Yeah. And we actually, we're piggybacking. There's a brother who started and runs the political arm of what we do out of Shreveport, Louisiana. He has Tuesday morning breakfast, and they've been doing it for like 20 plus years. And when I went to see how he did it, I was like, hell, if they can have 30, 35 people in Shreveport, surely I can have 20, 25 plus here in Houston. But one thing I didn't have that I'm trying to build now that he had when they got started, they started as a chamber of commerce, and then they rolled into Tuesday morning breakfast. So they already had a group of following support. Whereas when I got started, it was just me, and I'm trying to build that team moving forward. I have zero doubt that I'll be able to hit those kinds of numbers because we are in Houston. It's just gonna take some time to build up to it. So that's what this is about. Got a question?
Sorry.
You got a question?
No. Like I said, and like I said, it was interesting last week. I'm just trying to see how that's sort of, how is this going to be beneficial to me and the people that I work with and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just interested. Why is everybody else here? And you guys have been especially, is it generally 2-5 people, or do you need more people to come in or that kind of thing?
Well, it always helps to have more people here, but we do have an online audience. People do watch the recording. And it's a relatively new thing. We advertise it, but I will say that I need to do a better job of advertising more in Acres Homes to get more people to come out who live here. But I can't tell you why. Like 2 weeks ago, when I met Sister Felicia, we had someone from the city of Houston come out to talk about the Super Neighborhood Program. And when I arrived 10 minutes early, it was packed. It was packed. I think we had 3 seats available in the back. The topic and the speaker got people here. Now, I think we've had some phenomenal topics and speakers. I think last week's speaker was phenomenal. But it's trying to pinpoint what people are willing to come out and listen to, and then going from there. So, it's a process. And last thing on this before we get started, it's not about just getting a person to come out and talk about whatever. It's about doing something with that information that they share. So I was supposed to call you yesterday, but I ran out of time. I definitely want to do a Thursday morning breakfast around what you were talking about. Someone in the community who has connections to churches in particular, but other people who want to do something, especially financially or economically, and what can we do to really make that happen? So it's not just about the speaking, it's about doing something with what the person says who is speaking, so we can continue to build and move the community forward. So the speaking is just the first part.
Before we get started, so what, I guess let's go around the room, so I have an idea of what people are doing and interests and good things.
What he wants to do is introduce you to the bio first and then sort of go through what it is that you're talking about. Are you ready to start?
I am.
I think that's probably.
Well, I would love to just kind of, before we go into it, like I said, this kind of small and intimate group, just better understand what you guys are looking for, where you're coming from, so I can tailor that discussion a little bit. If you wouldn't mind starting.
My name is Darrell. I work in the Acres Homes community, and I am here to acquire information and resources that will better my community.
My name is Wesley Martin. I work with the Salvation Army. Do a lot of mentoring with youth, especially at-risk youth and Greens Point area, primary. I'm just interested in learning more networking. So we can collaborate with more nonprofits. That's my goal.
Yourself.
He just said it, actually, I do, I met him at God's Point in Greens Point, and, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I'm trying to change Greens Point, like, for good, like, it's been way too long.
Yeah.
And, down and out, and it's time for it to have a resurgence.
Greens Point is currently going through gentrification, isn't it? I've heard that.
Well, if you wanna call it gentrification.
Okay.
That's happened in a number of ways back when COVID was happening, but.
Oh,
But it's actually, we're giving back to the community to try to give skills and trades to the kids in the
Yep,
community.
that's it.
And
Yes,
do
sir.
that
Yeah.
from ground up. So that
And,
is
and
gentrification.
And another thing, Ms. Renetta, that's important about what we do, like, we know that gentrification is happening across the board, but we have yet to understand that we can gentrify our own spaces if we had the understanding and the right organization. So it's not just about having people come out to talk. It's about utilizing that expertise to organize and move the community forward. Because gentrification, it don't have to be a bad thing, especially if you're doing it for your own space and the opportunities are there, we're just not organized to do it. Brother Shaka, you want to tell Brother DJ real quick what brings you here, and then we'll get started.
Good morning, DJ. I am an economist, higher corporate economist. Pretty much, I'm here in order to kind of do what these, what everybody's here to basically do. I like to use food in terms of being able to build community ties and build those communities stronger. Hopefully over the next year or so, we can develop some food programs, some community farms, community gardens, and leverage different forms of technology, crypto being one. Back in 2020, I was able to sell a bunch of food at like way below market prices, charging only $1. I was able to turn those individual dollars into crypto investments that went from being worth $1 back in 2020 to now with Bitcoin being worth $106,000. I'm looking at $1 in 2020 is now $7. So I'm wanting to be able to kind of expand that program along with being able to expand different skills in regards of getting trades back into the communities where we can use those trades in order to build more community gardens, do more things in regards of moving individuals, mainly kids, from that pipeline of working those Walmart jobs into something that gets them into more of the immediate benefit to the community, such as community farming, and having them assist or having technology assist them with that in different forms of agricultural technology that will improve productivity.
All right, good?
Good.
Okay, so I guess we'll officially get started. Thank you guys for being here, as always. This is Thursday morning breakfast. We do this every Thursday morning. And the idea is to, again, as I just said, to find private and public subject matter experts, invite them out to speak about whatever they might do in hopes that it will help the community move forward. I started an organization, called Grow for Care, GROW, number 4 CRE. They're both acronyms. GROW stands for Generating Real Opportunities to Win, and CARE is Community Action Results Empowerment. So our website is GROW, the number 4 CARE, because when you put them together, it's generating real opportunities to win for community, for action, for result, for empowerment. I am of the mindset, especially as it relates to grassroots Black people, grassroots brown people, grassroots yellow people, poor people. If we don't take it upon ourselves to do what we need to do to move our communities forward, it ain't gonna happen, especially with this administration. I'm not sure if we are quite to the point of having a fascist government yet, but we're most certainly on the path. And when you have that kind of reality, you can't expect, it's a mistake to expect government to do anything for you. So we got to get to the understanding that if we want it done, no matter what it is, we're gonna have to do it for ourselves, or find people that are willing to help us do it, that maybe they're willing to come out and train us to do it. And one of the great things about Brother Shaka is that he was one of our speakers a few months ago, did an absolutely phenomenal job. If you haven't already seen it, I will send you his presentation. He killed it. And we have national leadership. Matter of fact, we're building national think tanks in different areas. And the brother who runs our national agricultural department was equally blown away by what Kashaka said. He said, well, everything wasn't exactly on point, but the young brother's on a good path. So the beauty is that there are people doing some very good things in Houston. And there are a lot of people that need those good things to be done in their lives, but they don't know about what's happening. So we try to be the bridge in between the two. And Thursday morning breakfast is simply a part of that. We do a lot of things to try and bridge that gap. And again, as I was saying, gentrification doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be a good thing, but it often happens at the expense of those who don't have money to gentrify themselves. But we waste a lot of money on crap. And if we had better discipline and better understanding, then there's nothing stopping us, especially with the advent of digital currencies and whatnot. There's nothing stopping us from doing what we want to do for ourselves. We just got to be organized to do it. So that's why we're here. That's why we do this thing every Thursday morning. I'm going to read Brother DJ's bio, and then I'll turn this thing over to him. So Darrell Malone, Darrell Malone Jr. is an Austin-based software engineer and technology activist with over 15 years experience building communities around leading-edge technologies like artificial intelligence and blockchain. He serves as executive director of the National Police Data Coalition and nonprofit advancing transparency and accountability in US policing and co-leads the API platform team at Eagle Eye Networks, the world premier cloud video surveillance provider. So on that note, I'm gonna turn this thing over to brother DJ and he'll do his thing. So y'all, please give him a round of applause as he comes up. I'd appreciate it, please. Not just me. Thank you. Take it in.
All right. Good to meet all of you guys, and get a quick, introduction to what you do. Tell you a little bit more about my background. Software engineer and product manager, self-taught. I started coding when I was in middle school and pretty much kept that up throughout my entire life. I really got into the emerging technology space, really with the whole crypto wave. It was a time, this was the first time I lived in Austin. I just moved back last year. But the first time I moved there, I was still, early on in my career trying to develop my, reputation as an engineer and build up my resume and everything like that. And startups were a lot more willing to hire people who were fresher, who didn't have, university backgrounds and everything like that. So I ended up working in that space pretty heavily. And at the time, I wanted to do something with, this was kind of before cryptocurrency, or at least before I really knew about currency. But I started working with a company that was building a technology for running transactions for, small groups, farmers markets, and these sorts of things, and basically allowing them to operate without having to use credit card processing and these sorts of things. In the research for that technology came into the crypto space and pretty much took off in that space. I was a co-founder of an ATM company, one of the first Bitcoin ATM companies here in Texas. I then moved on to work for BlockFi for a number of years when they were really going through a massive growth spurt. I think I was the 112th employee. And by the time I left, we were somewhere around 800. BlockFi was basically a cryptocurrency bank. So if you think about the primary functions of a bank, it's taking currency, holding it, lending it, and making sure that it replicates. It's one of the biggest, really, problems, I would say, especially at that time in the crypto space, was that you could buy Bitcoin and then what could you do with it? Right? Like it's deflationary by its nature through the technology. How familiar are you guys with kind of Bitcoin and how it works? I assume there's some familiarity in the group.
Depends on what level.
Yeah, really, a little bit, but feel free to elaborate.
I mean, just to this point, it's a deflationary technology, right? Deflationary currency. It doesn't inflate in the same way that there are new dollars being printed every day. There are fewer and fewer Bitcoins being created over time. So that means mathematically the value is going to go up, right? So that's what you're relying on when you make a Bitcoin specifically investment.
There's a finite amount of mining you can do.
Correct.
That's it?
Correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
That would kind of be in relation to what I did with the vegetables, selling them at $1. And now each one of those dollars is worth $7.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the idea behind generating value or increasing the value of your holdings in Bitcoin. But what's missing from that is what happens in let's say the dollar system, for example. The reason that they can go ahead and keep printing more and more dollars is because all of those dollars that get created are out there to chase more dollars, right? Dollars in our system get created by banks. When a bank lends you money, they're creating that money generally out of thin air. They only have to have 10% of that balance of actual capital in order to lend out the other 90%. So you're actually creating new currency, but with the stipulation that this currency should be coming back to us, the bank, whenever our person who you lend it to goes, starts their business, does whatever they do to go ahead and make a profit, right? So that is really a pretty beneficial system. And it was something that BlockFi was trying to bring to the Bitcoin space by saying, hey, we're going to not just hold Bitcoin, we're also going to lend it out. We're going to rehypothecate, and we're going to make sure that that Bitcoin is chasing more currency of whatever type that is, right? It's generating more value. So
what's the name of the company? BlockFi?
BlockFi.
BlockFi, block FI or block 5?
FI.
FI, okay.
The crypto space really went through a huge ruction with the Sam Bankman-Fried situation. This was a guy who was the founder of a really massive exchange, FTX, which had become really instrumental in the entire industry. Unfortunately, he was a complete fraud. Ended up defrauding not only his customers, but because he was a big lender to a lot of people in the crypto space, actually took down a pretty good portion of the industry along with it. So just to kind of start aiming towards one of the cautionary tales of looking at cryptocurrency as a way for advancement. It's not necessarily something that you should go into without having your eyes wide open, right? So to stick on cryptocurrency for a while, the primary idea that, or the primary benefit of a cryptocurrency of any type, there are many types, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, the list goes on. But the primary benefit is that they solve a collective action problem, right? It's a way for people to organize around a particular activity that that community sees as beneficial. In the case of Bitcoin, it's the mining, right? And the mining is seen as beneficial because it protects the ledger, the transactions that are happening, and everybody's going to essentially be able to profit off of being able to execute those transactions, right? That's the benefit. If you look at Ethereum, the collective action that's happening is the processing of contracts, right? Those are all kind of in the currency space. There were a couple of different cryptocurrency projects that I've come across that were looking beyond that. So there was a company in Austin, or a community in Austin, called Arcade City, which was looking at ride sharing and saying ride sharing is an activity that we want to actually promote. We want to have a cryptocurrency that's going to incentivize people to go and provide rides and transportation. There are digital identity companies that will look and try to say, okay, we're going to make sure that you have the ability to keep your identity with you. You don't have to rely on a passport. You don't have to rely on, different certifications or what have you. We can actually store that in a ledger, make that digitized, and make that easier for you to move around with and things like that. So some of the more interesting projects were trying to solve some collective action problems and trying to incentivize a large group to collaborate without having to necessarily know each other, trust each other, and build those sorts of relationships outside of kind of this network that kind of reinforce that, right? That's the general idea of crypto. So if you are looking at investing in this space, working in this space, you want to kind of come into it with that mindset, right? You want to understand that what these things are actually trying to do is just get a large group of people to really be really good and improve and execute on one thing. In the same way that a company might try to do the same thing and use their share price or shares in their company to incentivize people on that goal. This is basically the same thing that's happening with the cryptocurrency, right? Just a way to incentivize people to take collective action. So kind of just to gauge in the room, how many of you guys have invested in crypto, want to invest in crypto, anything along those lines?
I
Okay.
have. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it.
Yeah.
Be honest.
Well,
I've lost some money, let's just say that.
I haven't lost any money, but I don't, I gave money to someone who knows how to do this, I don't know about. So, and every now and then I ask him, how's it going? He's like, well, okay, I think it's Hex, is what it was,
Hex. Okay.
yeah. HEX or something, not really sure. But he says it's, I don't know, he talks about a wallet and switching something over and this and that. And
Yeah.
It's a process.
It's a process, you know, it's like, I don't really want to know. Sounds
Yeah.
like I'm busy doing other things, I can't hold this with the brain power up, so. But, so I gave it to him.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar in like the whole FTX kind of controversy. Something not very aware of.
Yeah.
Followed sometimes.
Okay. So yeah, having been in the space for a long time, I've been a very mild investor.
Hmm.
I've stuck primarily to Bitcoin and Ethereum. And probably if you take away nothing else from this, I would try to avoid those smaller tokens because the issue is it's very, very easy to create a cornered market in crypto. And basically what that means is you as the person who has, a large holding of whatever that currency is, you can move the market. So if you decide on one day, I want to actually juice up the price, you've got the ability to do that, right? A lot of the exchanges are very anonymous. It's very hard to see, what people are doing to manipulate the market. So it's very easy to do that.
A lot of road pulls and something else.
A lot of road
I
pulls.
don't want to get involved. I didn't know.
Yeah. And really that's what it comes down to. It's all about information. If you're in the know and you're one of the key opinion leaders, you have the ability to sway markets, people will come to you who are starting currencies and they'll say, hey, I want to put together a campaign. We're going to go and we're going to, make the market move in certain ways. Here's when you should buy in. We'll give you a certain amount to hold. Here's when you need to sell. Don't sell before this point. It'll all be very much structured, right?
Right.
And because it's such an unregulated space, because it's so opaque, it's very easy to get away with things like that. So, not for the faint of heart. I probably would, like I said, stay in the more established kind of currencies where there's a large enough pool, there's large enough liquidity that you have less of a risk of that. Even in that sense, there's still a lot of, concentration in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency markets. That's just kind of, that's a fact of capitalism more broadly at this point, but that's especially pronounced when you're talking about cryptocurrencies, right? So just a word of caution there when it comes to investing. If you're interested in building a community around crypto, then, like I said, what you're looking at is collective action. What you're looking at is economics and how you actually create a system that's going to basically continue to self-replicate, right?
Can you give us an example of how that has occurred or can occur, how a community can build around a particular crypto? Can you give us an example of that?
You can see that in the example of the cryptocurrencies that have already gotten really big, right? So if you look at Bitcoin, it started out as kind of this thing that was talked about on message boards and that sort of thing, just an idea.
Mm-hmm.
People had this concept about how it would work, the benefit that it would have.
Okay.
And just by enough people continually, working at it, producing it, believing in it,
Mm-hmm.
buying hardware, improving the way that they operated on it. There were a lot of different innovations that happened when all of a sudden, people started using GPUs to mine, and that started changing, the way that the whole market behaved.
Okay.
People started, eventually building businesses and exchanges to facilitate this baseline technology to then become more accessible to a larger community.
Yeah.
So there was work that just built on itself.
Okay.
But it started with a really core community that was extremely dedicated, that really believed in what they were doing,
Right.
and bringing more people into the fold and building things that made it easier for more people to come into the fold.
And Bitcoin, and I'm asking this question, Bitcoin is built on the foundation of the blockchain, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
So the people that you're talking about who helped to make Bitcoin what it is, it sounds like it's an open source operating environment where everybody's adding to make it become what it is today, but it was based on the foundation of this blockchain. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was based on a foundation of a couple of different technologies
Okay.
that kind of came together to solve this problem of digital money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, you want to think about it in the terms of if you were building a business and this was a piece of equity that you were using to incentivize people to, take whatever actions you want them to take. The actions that are taken should be basically building up and becoming better at whatever it is you want that community to do. Right. And that's kind of the idea. It's you're building it with the idea that it's pretty much already a publicly traded share.
Mm.
So initially that means you have to have a lot of really strong community in order to make it work.
Gotta have buy-in.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
because
really have to have
you
buy-in.
don't have buy-in in crypto, no matter what it is. The value was in the buy-in.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of my piece on crypto. Any thoughts there? Anything anybody wants to dig into further?
Well, I got a few questions. Anybody have a question about crypto? 'Cause I got a few.
I'll think about my question.
Yeah, I'm saying here, I'm
Alright.
still thinking.
Okay. This one here. You got all right. Okay, so
So one of the
wait, I got questions. Sorry.
oh yeah, go for it.
BlockFi, they still out there?
They are not. No, they went bankrupt after the whole SBF situation.
Okay.
One of many companies that got caught up in that.
Okay. And what and I'm if you mention this, I apologize, I missed it. But what exactly is cryptocurrency? How would you define and or describe exactly what cryptocurrency is?
I mean, cryptocurrency is just a currency that is, I would say, protected by cryptography.
Oh.
Usually, it's open source, but doesn't necessarily have to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned the term ledger.
Yeah.
People don't know what that is. So what is a ledger? And
Ledger-
also, he mentioned a wallet. People don't know what a wallet is. So can you define both those things, the ledger and the wallet?
Sure. Ledger is exactly what it sounds like. It's a ledger, just as you would have in a business tabulation. Here are the transactions that took place. It's basically that's what that is.
Okay.
So a digital ledger is just a digital version of that. Here are all the transactions that took place and when, between who, how much, all of that.
And why is that
And
important?
then
Significant.
that is essentially the record of transactions. So it lets you know how much currency any given person has at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
All of that gets recorded into a ledger.
Right.
And what happens in let's just say Bitcoin, for example, is that ledger is basically stored across all of these different computers. They all agree on what the ledger is, the state of the ledger, and any changes that are made to that ledger have to be kind of approved by the entire group. Right. So it's really just a shared record, a shared document that says these are the transactions that have taken place with this currency.
And that sounds like it would help with anyone attempting to commit fraud because it's a record of everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And my last question is, what exactly is blockchain?
I mean, that is essentially blockchain. Like the process of storing that ledger in a communal fashion and having a process for updating that ledger where everyone has to agree on those updates
Okay.
is what creates the blockchain. Every update to the ledger is a block.
Okay.
And so those blocks are literally chained together.
Okay.
Can I so there was a when individuals are going into military school, there is a story that's widely told to them about the chain of communications and how easy that is to break down.
When you said military school, you mean basic training? What do you mean military school?
Military college.
Oh, okay.
Where you go to learn to be a general and things like that. There's a story about a general in a war who has to get a message to the other side of the country without that message being corrupted.
Yeah.
Because if it's going mouth to mouth, eventually over time, it will lose the
Different message.
yeah, turn into a different message.
Sure.
With blockchain, blockchain is it's a system of recording that message perfectly. It can't be corrupted because it is being updated simultaneously to everybody at the same time.
Okay.
So you lose that ability to cheat the system by telling another person a different message that does not resonate with the other 99 messages.
Gotcha. Okay.
So to that point, one of the core kind of concepts that underlies blockchain technology is cryptography, right? Exactly what you're talking about. how do you transmit a message, or in this case, how do you transmit a message secretly and have verification on the other end that the message you received is both what the sender intended and was sent by the sender that you think it was sent by, right? That's the problem of cryptography.
Okay.
Now, this is
That's the problem, but that's the problem that it solves.
that's the problem that it solves.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. This is obviously really important in blockchain technology, but has implications across the board for a lot of different areas. I mentioned earlier that I run operations for the Tech Partner Program in Eagle Eye Networks. Eagle Eye Networks is basically a cloud video surveillance company. So if you look around this room right here, we've got cameras just stationed in different points. Sometimes those cameras will go to a local hard disk that just stores all of that data. And maybe, there's a theft or something, they go and they read that and they check it out, whatever the case may be. If you're talking about a cloud surveillance system, what happens is that data then gets sent to the cloud. That data can then be processed by AI. That data can then be used in a number of different ways to understand, how the business is running, are people in hours that they shouldn't be. All of that can kind of happen in the cloud in an automated fashion, right? One of the problems of cloud video surveillance, or really just video in general, is how do you know that video has not been tampered with, right?
Yeah.
So cryptography is also used in that process, right? The same thing that underpins blockchain technology is also used to basically watermark videos to say, yes, this video was recorded by this system at this time, has not been edited, has not been, tampered with in any way, and you have some assurance about that, right? So the underlying concept is something that really embeds all of the technology that we really engage with today. Use your bank account, use anything, you're going to be using cryptography in that process. The collective action part of that is really what was new for Bitcoin. It was having that cryptography take place, not just between two people, not just with one person kind of saying, yes, we say that this is what we, have as our records, but a collective group was making that assessment. One of the ways that I took that technology forward was when I started the National Police Data Coalition. So this was the idea that you would have, I started this organization 2020 with, it was the George Floyd situation that had actually occurred. Although really even before that, I had started an organization called the Tubman Project, which was basically looking at how do we use artificial intelligence to improve the system of justice that we have, make it so that you were really assured your right to defense in a way that, could hopefully enhance the existing legal community that we have out there. Public defenders, heavily overtaxed, very, very difficult for them to keep up with, the
Caseload.
incredible caseload and just the over policing that sometimes takes place in America. I kind of predicted that between, the economic issues, this was back in like 2017 when I started this, that between the economic issues that we were having, between any sort of climate issues, immigration issues, that we were probably on a long-term course towards a more authoritarian America. Unfortunately, that turned out to be correct.
Yeah.
And at that time, I started the Tubman Project initially to try and combat this or provide kind of a counterweight to that. And then eventually started the National Police Data Coalition with that same mission in mind. In this case, directly working to hold police accountable and make sure that we have records of when police commit crimes, if they commit crimes, when they move to other states, when they move to other police departments, make sure that they can be tracked and all of that, and make sure that that data is accessible to attorneys, to, comptrollers, to anybody who is involved in that process of accountability for policing, just making it dead simple for them to really have access to that data.
And that's an active database that's up and right now. You got to still build it.
Correct.
So it is active and being used.
We have a number of people that are testing it right now.
Okay.
Attorneys from, public defenders and civil rights attorneys.
Okay.
And a few journalists
Okay.
who are also kind of playing around in the database as we have it right now. We're planning to release a UI for that database. So
It's,
user interface.
thank you.
Planning to release a user interface for that database, which is basically a way for people who are non-technical to be able to access it and see what's in there and see it visually displayed and everything like that. Right now it's all API based, so you really have to be a programmer or somebody who understands how to use those tools to really make use of the data. But we're hoping to change that here pretty soon.
So I'm sorry.
National Police Data Coalition.
I have a fairly long-winded question.
Sure.
So. A big aspect of countering the authoritative piece, right? I see as small business, entrepreneurship, those kinds of things. So. A lot of what we're trying to do is with the youth in particular, is break away from just go to college. First of all, it's not realistic for a lot of people. And second of all, it's over water people, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to make some pushes into trade, entrepreneurship, and then also I get questioned all the time about hey, I want to start a nonprofit. How can I do that? That's going to benefit my community, or a small business that's going to benefit my community. So my question is, with crypto in particular, or with some of these technologies, I understand that education about the investment piece. Beyond the investment piece, what would you suggest in particular for entrepreneurs, small businesses, maybe people who want to start a nonprofit? That's the realm I'm thinking of. So I guess it's a long-winded question, but how would you suggest applying some of this? The investment piece is one of it.
Yeah.
But then beyond just the financial investment.
I would say think very hard before you try and incorporate cryptocurrency into a nonprofit or a business, right? You want to make sure that you do have something that benefits from and requires that kind of openness.
Yeah.
Right. And when I say openness, what I mean is,
Well, one thing I'll say.
Yeah.
Transparency to me is incredibly important, and that's a
Yeah.
huge benefit. Yeah. Right, but there's a risk there too, so I think that's what you mean by open.
well, so that's why I wanted to clarify. When I say openness, I don't necessarily mean transparency. I mean exposure more so, right? Exposure to different people to kind of engage with that token, that currency, what have you.
Sure, but I mean, maybe the takeaway I'm trying to get it.
Yeah.
If there's a community, and a lot of us are in different aspects of the community,
Mhm.
if there's a community initiative.
Yeah.
And all of these community players want to be on the same page, they would benefit from that, right? But it's also public facing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It wouldn't be just for those community players.
Right.
Right. So you might have something with the idea that, hey, yes, this is something that our community will be able to use and everything like that. But a cryptocurrency is global.
Yeah.
Right. Your community is, are you going to be operating kind of one-to-one in a global sense? Is there something that you would be able to benefit from having that global exposure essentially to your community? And that may be the case, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that is the case. If you're able to kind of do something that operates at that scale and it makes sense, that could very well be a good idea. But that's really what you're getting with cryptocurrency, right? You're getting that global exposure.
It's Wesley, correct? You know what a smart contract is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like a smart contract might be a way to go with the nonprofit as it relates to ensuring that everybody is on the same page, and it's more personable, right? You a smart contract is just with a particular group, correct?
DOA.
DAO.
Yeah, DAO.
Yeah, so smart contract is basically trying to take arbitration and execution of a contract.
Right.
Instead of having that happen in the legal system, happens on a computer system.
So would that help what you're talking about? Is that like a non-issue for you?
It's not, it's really a potential.
Okay.
Because it's not like I have a real problem right now.
Right. Oh, I got you.
Trying to
Okay.
solve.
Okay.
I think bigger picture.
This is a hard question, because I think I feel what he's asking, because I have been rolling that in my head since we started this question and answer that section of it.
Yeah, I'm more planning, thinking.
Yeah, how can we apply this to, like, immediately to the kids in Greenpoint, let's just say?
Yeah.
For me, it was the recognition that individuals had a hard time affording food. And being able to use cryptocurrency as an appreciating asset in order to give a very deep discount at the beginning in which the individual purchased the food. So give another example of a piece of lettuce a head of lettuce costs $3.98. Well, that $3.98 may be very important to the individual. So if I can give that same piece of lettuce to the individual for $1, that's more in their price range of being able to afford. I have to take the hit in the initial beginning because I can go and I can sell this for $3.98 United States currency right now, or I can sell it for $1 in United States currency. Put that into Bitcoin and allow Bitcoin to increase over time, therefore turning that $1 that I sold it for into that whole $3.98 plus more over time. So eventually that $1 that I sold that piece of lettuce for reaches that price of lettuce at the market, and then it achieves a greater price.
So let me, if I could,
Yeah.
Kinda-
Long-term investment. Yeah.
if I can kind of take another spin on it.
You can wait that long.
So one of the potential uses for something like this, right, to help and impact a smaller community. This is a concept that was tried in a number of different ways, including, I did some experimentation with this. We had a project around how do we increase the investment in green energy technologies, right, in like Africa and different places like that, right? And so the idea was, if you had the ability to invest in these different pieces of infrastructure, solar panels, the transmission lines, these sorts of things, and then be able to benefit directly from those without having to require, some sort of government entity or corporate entity to kind of sit on top of that. But you would have a number of people be able to invest individually into this system that needs to kind of work together as a whole, right? So you would have a person who would purchase solar panels, plug this into the network. You would have a person who would purchase batteries, plug this into the network, a person who would purchase, transmission lines. As those different pieces of technology are used, cryptocurrency is generated from the consumer, and then that is paid across the line to those different pieces of infrastructure that helped to support that whole network being created, right? So this is the concept of using cryptocurrency to incentivize collective action.
Yeah.
The collective action is that investment in this technology and this infrastructure for providing electricity. The actual product is the electricity that's being produced. You're getting paid for that, and then the people who actually provided that investment all get paid out through that same network, right? So that's kind of the idea.
To
One
me, it
example.
sounds like there needs to be a foundation of really literacy though.
I was just about to say education.
For
Yeah.
or investments or just basic financial literacy.
Yeah.
And I know crypto is fairly complicated, really, and I'm thinking about, again, Greens Point, Acres Home, a lot of the communities that we serve, the Salvation Army. These are the communities that have lacks of education.
Yeah.
And
But it's not necessarily that you need education in the community, right? What has to happen is, let's say if there is a service that you want to provide to that community, It's the people who are providing the service that need to be incentivized.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? And so if those people are within the community and those people in the community can be part of providing that service, then yes, they need to be educated in how they can participate in that system. Right? That's kind of the idea. But the whole thing of cryptocurrency, like I said, it solves a collective action problem.
Yeah.
There has to be a service, something that you want to actually happen, that you need to bring people to the table to make happen in a way that, you know, that you want to do for whatever reason outside of the context of a company, of a nonprofit. You want to have this cryptocurrency basically be providing that incentive to execute on this
Okay,
rather
so-
than those structures.
So Ms. Renetta, did I say that right? Ms. Renetta has community members that she's connected to
Mhm.
that are ready to do something economically, financially, or could be ready with the right incentive, the right organization, to bring the nebulous nature of crypto down to the foundation grassroots level. How can crypto help her with her current connections right now do something to enhance the overall economic status of the community?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So again, it depends on the service that you want to provide.
So everything goes back to a service.
Everything goes back to a
Okay,
service.
okay.
Something has to be provided.
So let's say the service is a credit union.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, how could she and her community connections and relationships pool resources utilizing, I guess, fiat currency and crypto to
Mhm.
start a credit union to enhance the community's overall
Yeah.
economic strength?
So if you're talking about credit, then you're basically looking at a community currency, right?
There you go.
You familiar with the idea of have you ever heard of something called the Brixton pound, or I think what was the one here? Bevo bucks.
Nope, I haven't.
No. Bevo bucks. Bevo bucks this was something for the UT students. There were businesses in the UT area that would accept Bevo bucks. You could go and buy Bevo bucks, and then you essentially got a discount at those locations, right? So this is a way to incentivize spending money at particular businesses
Yeah.
by creating essentially a closed currency network, right? So if you're looking at a credit union, that's basically the model that you'd be looking at.
Mhm.
You're kind of creating a closed currency network. And so if you want to have that currency network be able to lend, if you want to have that network be able to, you know, incentivize different businesses to be used, you know, what have you, then you would structure your cryptocurrency along those lines. You might get into trouble depending on, you know, what activities that you want to take on with that. If you're talking about lending, that is very much a regulated space.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, that's what you're talking about if in the credit union example.
And I guess I would go back to Wesley's statement about educating the populace. Because I think, of course, the service providers or those offering the service, they would have to be educated in how this thing works.
Yeah.
But possibly more important is that the community has to be educated as to understand how this stuff works, because
Ideally, no.
no.
Right? Ideally, like when Uber became a thing,
Yeah.
you didn't have to be re-educated on, you know what I mean? You had to be
You had to be educated on how to use
you had to be acclimated
Yeah.
to the idea of getting in a car with a stranger.
Sure.
Like that was new.
Yeah.
But
and calling up a car with your phone.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole point of the app was to make it so simple that very little education was
I got
needed.
it. Okay.
Right. So to the end user,
Yeah.
you want to make it a very easy experience.
They didn't want it to work.
They just
Yeah.
want it to work.
Yeah.
It just needs to
That
work.
makes sense. That makes sense.
But the service providers,
Right.
that's where the change happens.
Okay. Okay. So the next question again, Wesley set me up really good. You work with young people, yeah? Yes. So what could the community do, or even Wesley do, if he wants, you know, cryptography, Bitcoin technology, whatever we call it, the blockchain? That is that's a lot of entrepreneurial and job opportunities, if you will. What can we do, those of us who work with young people, to start getting them trained, to put them in position to be more active in these spaces, because it is a big deal as it relates to the future?
You mean to work in the blockchain industry specifically, or?
Yes. Blockchain or cryptography. I mean, is that like You gotta go to college thing, or can the community
Yeah.
create and build some sort of?
Yeah.
Oh, my questions are great. How dare you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying, because for me, it's about bringing your conversation down here.
Yeah.
Whereby we can make it more applicable to the people that could benefit from it.
I'm gonna be honest, I think the trades conversation is probably more fruitful. Because here's what's happening in the
Treating it as a trade.
No. I mean trade.
Oh, the actual trade. Okay.
Actual trades. Yeah. Electrician,
Sure,
you know,
sure.
like this kind of thing. Because here's what's happening in the technology space, right? Massive numbers of layoffs, massive, you know, change in how these companies are actually operating. Large language models, may have heard of them. Pretty big fucking deal.
Okay.
Right? There are a lot of people who are really doing the best that they can to try and replace a lot of the more white collar
Can
functions.
you quickly define large language? Would you just say, can you quickly?
Large language model is basically a method for generating content or kind of transforming some sort of data, whether that's visual data, whether that's text strings, you know, whether that's audio data, into an output that is kind of built around concepts rather than just raw numbers or something like that, right?
Okay.
So the difference between like machine learning, which was the previous revolution in AI.
Yeah.
This was, you know, the biggest example of this is, let's say, the perceptron, right? So a perceptron is a way to take a visual image and make a decision based on that. So you can take an image, famous one, is this a hot dog or is this not a hot dog, right? You run that through a set of perceptrons, they come out with a true false answer, say, yeah, it's not a hot dog, it is a hot dog, based on just some matrix, you know, multiplication, right? With a large language model, what you're actually doing is kind of putting things into a conceptual space. So it allows for a little bit higher level of thinking, so to speak.
Yeah.
So the output is just much better.
Okay.
So a large language model is specifically that for language. So you're taking language, you're taking words, breaking them down into tokens, and these tokens can then be basically assigned a vector of meaning.
Okay.
Right? So a vector literally meaning like a direction and a speed, essentially. One direction in speed might be, or one direction in distance might be male. And then one direction in distance might be female. And so you can take basically any token, any kind of piece of a word or what have you, and kind of associate it with how close it is to these different concepts of male or female mathematically.
Okay.
So that's essentially what a large language model is doing. It's basically taking human language, turning it into these sets of tokens that all have different vectors and different meanings, and then allowing you to search through those meanings to get something that you want.
Okay.
Right. So the machine is able to kind of, without necessarily knowing anything, take words, break them down into concepts, figure out the correct response to that set of concepts, and convert that back into words.
So it sounds like you were about to say focusing on the trades because this cryptography Bitcoin thing is the Wild Wild West. That's what it sounds. So it sounds like you were headed.
Well, the technology space is the Wild Wild West, but I'm saying if you're trying to do something that is not going to require a college degree, that's probably not super fruitful, right? Because even so, I'm what's considered a blue collar coder.
Okay.
Right? Like I said, I'm self-taught, didn't go to university. I just basically got out there, started building stuff, and just worked.
Okay.
Right? That's becoming a lot harder because a lot of lower level engineers are now being replaced by machines.
Oh. Okay.
Right. So that path is just a lot harder.
Okay. So does that mean focusing some of your time, energy, and efforts on getting young people to understand how they can have a place or position with these technologies? Does that, what you just said, does that mean they shouldn't worry about it unless they're going to go to college? Because you're going to have to get that formal training to come in at a certain level. And because of that, we should focus more on the trades. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Am I missing?
Well, there's two different things. Number one, I think trades are going to be very much needed.
They
Right?
are.
Yeah. But I think even more so, because if you look at the direction that kind of the global economy is taking, it's breaking away from a more globalized sort of economy where different countries specialize in different things and everything, et cetera, to one where now every country is going to try and do more and more of everything for itself.
Sure.
So what that means is you're going to have a lot more of those just physical, tasks that need to be done, as opposed to right now, our economy is very much services based. Right. So a lot of things that we export to the world are fully digital. We export intellectual technology, we export movies,
And music.
and music. Yeah. We don't necessarily export things as much.
Right.
Well, that is now going to change. We're going to be starting doing more in the physical space.
Okay.
And less in the digital space. That's kind of the trend right now.
Yeah.
So, I would say that that's a good thing to focus on as a young person.
Yeah.
To try and be more capable in that space. Not just for the work opportunities, but even just for life reasons. You might want to just have these kinds of skills.
So we can help enhance the community by training our young people how to run a community.
Yeah.
Across the board, which includes the food.
Coordination building skills.
Oh, I can dig it. I was a part of one for a very long time, so I'm just trying to make it plain for everybody. Because Wesley's new. So yeah, and I get it. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. But that, what were you saying after that?
I do apologize. I didn't get going.
Okay. Thank you for coming, Wesley.
Very interesting.
I will most certainly be in touch.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Meet you in person. Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Other questions, thoughts?
Yeah, I got two more questions, I think. Are digital currencies safe to invest in and own? Is that a safe investment or should be like in?
I don't know.
Like
if I
any
would call
investment, don't invest in it if you can't lose it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say safe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And what was the purpose of the Bitcoin embassy that you were part of? What was the purpose of that, and why did they eventually go kaput?
Yeah, I don't know much about that. That was my business partner. Also founded my business partner in the ATM company also founded a space called the Bitcoin Embassy, which we also use that as office space as well for the ATM company.
Okay.
But I wasn't involved in that part.
Yes. Okay. So if a person did want to invest in digital currencies, what would be your 1, 2, 3 step process for a person who wants to who has that kind of business?
Yeah. I would say invest with a long-term view.
What's long term? What's long term?
Like 10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Yeah. I would invest with a long-term horizon. I would also maybe split this versus what you're looking for. Because there are some people who look at Bitcoin as a digital gold type of investment.
Right.
Like I want something that basically I have control over, I can take with me no matter what, and not have it be vulnerable to, any sort of taxation, molestation, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're going that route, then that's going to be much more of a technical understanding that you're going to have to get over how to actually protect those assets and execute on all that.
Yeah.
If that's not your goal, then I would say stick to more recognized exchanges. There's been a big shakeout. And one of the benefits to that is that hopefully we're getting some regulatory clarity on what it means to run a Bitcoin exchange, to run a Bitcoin bank. So, I would try to stick with one of those more recognized exchanges and try to stick to one of the larger and more liquid currencies that are less vulnerable to the sorts of cornering of markets and manipulations
So
that.
based
that
on
can
what you
happen.
said, are you one of those persons that thinks regulation of the cryptocurrency industry is a good thing and needed as related to people investing? Or are you like, no, let's not get the government regulations involved? Where do you stand?
I think for proof of work currencies, it's kind of irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the whole idea of a proof of work currency like Bitcoin is that it just works based on physics,
Okay.
and regulation is kind of secondary,
Okay.
right?
All right.
But I do think regulation is helpful to, protect businesses that operate in the space
Okay.
and allow them to do what they do with a sense of security, and
Okay.
that they're not going to, get random fines or,
Right.
or these kinds of
Right.
things.
Okay. I have one last question. Anybody else got a question?
One more thing that I will add to that.
Yes, sir.
Keep very good records,
Yeah.
because the taxation regimes around Bitcoin are also,
Looming.
well, they're already pretty rough.
Okay.
So I've heard of a number of people, just to give you an example, right? If you've got your currency on an exchange
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing a lot of transactions, right now every one of those transactions is a taxable event.
Okay.
So if you're not keeping those records
Mm-hmm.
and you're relying on the exchange to do that for you, they may not be doing that effectively.
The ledger doesn't do that automatically?
The ledger that's not what they're
Oh.
looking at.
Okay.
They want to know when you traded Bitcoin and the cost basis at which you did so.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so if that's not recorded properly,
Yeah.
then you might end up getting some sort of bill where, oh, we're just going to assume your cost basis is, X, when
Right.
your cost basis was really Y.
Sure.
And now you're paying taxes on that delta.
stamped?
Yeah.
It's manually done?
Yeah, you have to manually submit that. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
when it happens, when you buy it, at that time, at the price. Isn't that digitally stamped at that time so they would know, or?
No,
Oh,
because so what happens on the blockchain is different than what happens on maybe the exchange that you use, right? Yeah.
Okay. And my last question is, sorry, my notes. My last question is, can marginalized communities benefit from cryptocurrency investments? And technology and investments.
Yeah. Technologies, absolutely. I mean, cryptocurrency investments possible,
Mhm.
but there's risks. There's
Yeah.
risks involved.
Yeah, but more so than any other investment type? I guess it would be, huh? Because it's not
Like I said, if you're in some of these more unstable currencies, absolutely, it's extremely high risk.
Okay.
Right? Some of the more stable ones, there's less risk now.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's not like the risk is zero.
Other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, are there other cryptos that are, we can use the word stable, that are equally as stable as it relates to investment? Like other than Bitcoin and Ethereum, are there others that are equally as stable, quote unquote, stable?
I wouldn't say that there are others that are equally as stable. No. I think Bitcoin is probably just has so much more liquidity in terms of the number of people that hold it and in different places, to the point where now it's held by states and things
Sure.
of that nature. And I just don't know that there is any other cryptocurrency that has that level of distribution.
Cool. All right. Any last things you want to say in the closing before we close it out? Anything you want to say, close?
No, not too much. If you guys are interested in following me, I'm on all the different social platforms. I don't post much. I tend to.
That's true. And you under DJ Malone or under
Darrell K. Malone.
Darrell K. Malone.
Yep.
And DARRELL.
Yep.
All right.
2 R's, 2 L's.
Okay, bro. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right. Let me close this thing out and we'll be good to go. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, so really quickly before we close it, I want to share with everyone that we do have I'm not share my screen. A digital magazine that we started a number of weeks ago, and every person that speaks ends up on the cover of an issue. And the whole idea, as I said initially, with what we do, we want to bridge the gap between those that are doing the good, providing the information, providing the services with those that need it most. It publishes every week, comes out on Tuesday, partly to promote and market the Thursday morning breakfast. And I think this is our issue that has, I think we had 55 pages because there's a lot. When I first started, I was thinking, okay, should it be bi-weekly, should it be monthly? But there's simply too much happening, not only locally, but around the country that affects the local. So it comes out every week. And if you have anything that you want to do, of course, that affects the community in a good way, we want to know about you because we want you to become an advertiser. It only costs $25 a month to advertise, and we are a little over 1,000 subscribers, and 800 plus of them are in the greater Houston area. And lastly, I don't have it up, so I won't try and find it. Lastly, we have a Zoom call this coming Sunday where we have evidence of a sexual predator cover-up by HISD, Houston Independent School District. And we're having a Zoom call to put out more information about that so we can help bring that to light because several entities dropped the ball on what should have happened. And we always want to put our children, our students in a safe environment so that they're not preyed upon, which is a big problem. So on that note, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. And we will see you guys next Thursday. All right.
Thank you.